Live on location this hour at the Florida Blue Deerwood campus for a really important reason and I think an important mission. It's not just a one day or a one-off. This is the start of what hopefully in our community is going to be a milestone moment, hopefully, as we look back months and years from now. It's the Zero Suicide Jacks initiative, and it begins with the summit today, but beginning in September and throughout National Suicide Awareness Month. The community at large hopefully will be taking the pledge and trying to ask pointed questions and in one fell swoop, if we can, perhaps trying to help someone in crisis and help prevent suicide in our community. I learned something from Senator Rusin last hour when he talked about the gift that he was given of being so deep in crisis.
Right.
That was a gift.
He said desperation is a gift sometimes.
That I'd not heard that before, and that opened up my eyes. I think if anything, this summit and this initiative can open eyes, open hearts a little bit, and perhaps let in a little bit of that light and maybe save a life. We're joined by Emma Benoit, suicide attempt survivor, which I don't often think about being able to have a radio with someone who has survived a suicide attempt. So first of all, thank you for coming to share your story with us here this morning. And Christine was just literally asking you off the air before we kind of get into the story and the background of it. You're an advocate now and you travel the country to share your story. Is that cathartic for you to do it? Why are you choosing to do that?
Yeah, it's super important for me to use my lived experience to make a difference in the world. I recognized how common my struggles were amongst my peers and just people in general. I didn't realize how normal mental health sufferings and struggles were until I faced them on my own. And so having a suicide attempt that I had the opportunity to survive from really kind of served as a catalyst to set my emotional recovery into action. And while I was recovering emotionally and mentally, learning all kind of coping skills and things that I didn't know before, I decided that I should share it with others to help them not struggle in silence.
I'm sure that people don't take this the wrong way, and when this is radio, so when people go on our website, they're going to see your picture. But I'm sure that people are going to look at you and go, you're too pretty to ever be depressed. I mean, you're gorgeous, you're beautiful, you're well-spoken, you're obviously intelligent. I think it's important that part of your story shares with other people the fact that this really can happen to anyone, and just because you look like you have everything going for you, it doesn't. Is that an important part of your message?
Absolutely. That is one of the key points of my message, is that the stigma and mental health struggles don't discriminate, regardless of who you are or what you have or what you don't have or what you look like. You are susceptible to brain pain. And so for me, struggling all of those years in silence, ashamed, afraid to come forward and share with people how I truly felt because of the stigma, because of my looks and my blessings and all the things that were afforded to me, I felt so much shame around my emotions. And so that is also a big piece to why I decided to share my story, was to let people know that we can't put a face to mental health. We shouldn't put a face to mental health because there is none.
One of the things that people who attempt suicide have said is that, or people who observe them have said, is that you really can't tell when that breaking moment is, but oftentimes there's a period of amazing happiness that precedes it. Was that the case with you?
100%, yes. In fact, when I share my story, when I do my keynote speeches, I talk about how the weekend before I was in New York City on a modeling trip as a senior rep with a local photographer. And during that trip, it felt like all of my joy had returned. And so I had this euphoric high on life feeling. And then when I returned home, facing the reality of my facade and the devastating feelings I was dealing with mentally and emotionally all alone, I hit a breaking point. And that was my quote unquote moment of crisis that we often hear people referencing when they're talking about suicide attempts.
It was in 2017, 8 years ago. As you think back, were there people asking you, how are you? Did you have support around you? Because we often think about, well, no one was there to care for you, but I would imagine you weren't alone.
Yeah, I definitely had a very strong support system around me. I had a great group of friends, a supportive family. I was a varsity cheerleader. I had a great team. I was never lacking in the area of support. It was all stemming from my fear and my shame around my emotions. And so I became a people pleaser. And I would tell my friends and family what they wanted to hear so that way they wouldn't worry about me. I didn't want to burden anyone with how I was feeling inside. So I kind of created a facade and kept up that people-pleasing role so that way loved ones wouldn't see too deeply into me.
Did you not want help?
There was a time when I thought about getting help and reaching out for help, but I would immediately shut that thought down by telling myself to leave that for people who have real problems. You have to understand, I thought that I was the problem with myself. I felt so much shame, so much guilt around having big feelings, around having anxiety, around having depressive episodes. I felt guilty and thought that I was in the wrong for feeling the way that I did. So when it came to reaching out for help, that was something that was so foreign to me that I never even considered.
Emma, do you ask people how they're doing in a different way than everybody else says, hey, how are you?
100%. I try to really sit with them and make eye contact and make sure that they are feeling my presence and my empathy. And I try to find alternative language outside of the typical, how are ya, how you doing?
Like what? Give us an example.
Well, I'll ask someone, is there anything exciting that you've been working on lately? Or what's been the peach in the pit of your day? You know, just to really emphasize that, yes, we are excited when we share joyous things. I tell people all the time, a shared joy is double the joy, but a shared sorrow is half the sorrow. So if we can get people opening up about the not so good things in their life in a more comfortable setting, the better we'll be, I think.
We're visiting with Emma Benoit, suicide attempt survivor at the Zero Suicide Jack Summit. You'll be a keynote speaker here a little bit later this afternoon, and again, people will see your photo and say, what a beautiful young lady, and yet you carry your attempt with you, and that's that you're in a wheelchair. How impactful is that in sharing your story?
I think because I wear my attempt on me with my wheelchair, it is very powerful, and people often approach me and ask me what has happened, and I kind of view it as a gift and an opportunity to share my story. It is something that I've never been ashamed of, and I've been more so grateful for my ability to share my story because of my wheelchair. So I know a lot of people look at me and think that they should pity me or feel sorry for me, but it's actually quite the opposite. I am grateful to be here. I am happy to be alive, and if I can use my lived experience to help others, then I'm happy to do that.
Can I ask a blunt question? Because admittedly, I said this when I was a teenager, and a good friend of mine at the time had her father commit suicide. And I said, and other people around us said, how could he be so selfish? Mm-hmm. How do you answer? Is that even fair to ask?
You know what? I think it is fair. It is fair. And if we're being real and blunt and honest, I think there is a degree of selfishness to suicidality, but we have to really be able to empathize with where that person is at mentally and emotionally. And if we think back to a time when we just wanted to give up and we didn't know how we were going to proceed and move forward, we have to kind of put ourselves in that position mentally when we're thinking of someone who was struggling with thoughts of suicide.
Assuming you're not a people pleaser anymore.
No.
There are people who are listening right now who probably are worried about their own young person in their life, worried about, hey, is there something that I can do now to prevent that person from taking or attempting to take their own life? Are there signs that people should be looking for, particularly parents and those closest to younger people?
Absolutely. I would say be keenly aware of how much pressure your young person is putting on themselves, the perfectionism, the pressures they're placing on themselves. All of these factors are really indicators that something might be going on mentally and emotionally. And also, I always tell parents and people who are guardians of young people to start the conversation now. I think it's important to be proactive instead of reactive. So if we're concerned or we think that we should be concerned, just start the conversation. Put the difficult topics of conversation on the dinner table.
I'm holding up my phone. How dangerous is this to society from your standpoint?
Extremely dangerous. There's several different factors that I think of when it comes to the dangers of social media and our cell phones, but the biggest one being that we are the most connected that we have ever been, but at the same time the most disconnected, because the versions of reality that we're witnessing online are false realities. They are projected realities. And so what's happening is we have an entire generation of young people who are assuming and consuming this content and thinking that it's real life, and it's not.
How are you choosing to live your life now with the chance that you've been given and you gave yourself?
Vulnerably, freely, raw, open. I don't hold anything back. I am a firm believer that we are here to support one another. We are here to help one another. And each and every day, that is my mission. My mission is to spread mental health awareness so that people know that they are never alone. And I use my voice and my story to help advocate for suicide prevention so that others know that suicide does not need to be the option.
Is there one story of someone who's come to you with an issue or someone who's thinking of taking their own life that stands out in your mind?
Yes. A young girl from my hometown I had the opportunity to speak with a couple of months after my attempt, actually, and we became really close and connected on our shared experiences, and my story actually saved her life. And so that's something I'm very grateful to know and that she shared with me, and there's been others that have shared the same sentiment.
One of the things that we deal with in the media all the time is a conflicting opinion on whether or not when people do take their lives, we should share the names of those people. Because the thought is you don't want to glorify suicide so that you have copycats. What is your opinion about that? And I apologize for putting you on the spot, but
yeah, you know what? I think with discretion, I think it depends on what the family's preferring. I think, personally, I don't feel as though it's any kind of glorification of suicide to talk about it and to share with the world that that is what they were struggling from. And I also think that it kind of gives us an opportunity as a society to do better with our language. And so when we talk about death by suicide, it's a good opportunity for us to let people know that saying things like committed suicide versus died by suicide is important to be aware of. So I think it kind of serves as an educational opportunity.
that's interesting.
We're visiting with Emma Benoit, a suicide attempt survivor at the Zero Suicide Jack Summit. Is it realistic that we can get to zero suicide in Jacksonville?
Absolutely. I think the more we band together, the more we advocate for mental health awareness and suicide prevention efforts, the better off we'll be. I always say proactive, not reactive.
Are you still receiving help, and what does help look like today to you?
I have a regimen, a routine, a daily self-care ritual that I am very consistent with. I have a therapist, I have my supports, I have my amazing husband, so I am very well taken care of.
You have your amazing husband sitting right next to you,
Yes.
looking at you with pride.
Aw.
Evan is here, and 6 months ago now?
Yes, March 16th we got married.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
An incredible journey and a story that hopefully touches someone somewhere. And if you had a closing message, I guess, if you could reach through a radio speaker, what would your message be, Emma?
You are never alone. Your feelings and your story are valid and you matter. And if you are struggling, reach out for help. It's the scariest, hardest step to take, but I promise you it's worth it and necessary for your mental health.
And Emma, if people want to reach out to you to see if you can speak to their group, to their school, how do they get in touch with you?
You can find me online at emmaspeaks.org, www.emmaspeaks.org.
She has shared a documentary on her journey called My Ascension. It's available at PBS and for streaming just about everywhere as well. A beautiful young woman with a difficult but an impactful story, and I appreciate you sharing it with our audience.
Yeah, thank you.
Nice to meet you. Thanks for coming. Jacksonville's Morning News continues at 9:23.